Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Well, thank God it's Friday. We're coming to you live from Lagos, here in Nigeria. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
Well, Kayode, I never heard you happier to say thank God it's Friday. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
I'm beginning to suspect the two of you. There must be something I don't know.
It's been a long week, honestly. So when I sighed and said, thank God it's Friday, it's on different levels, having to go through. I mean, our job is a very interesting one, right? You have to go through different stories. You have to really wade through those reports, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when I say thank God it's Friday, it's essentially saying, I'm grateful for a new day. But I mean, we're here in the comfort of perhaps your home, on the way to your office, wherever it is you are. There's some certain kind of safety for you, but we can't say the same for the Kaduna train kidnap victims. You recall, it was March the 28th that attack happened and the eventual kidnap. We've seen videos and pictures. And the latest is this report that one of the victims, who was said to be pregnant, has now delivered a baby. Now that's a report making the rounds. In fact, you see pictures around of the baby that was said to have been delivered by one of the victims. I recall vividly, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that the families of those victims were at the National Human Rights Commission. And it was, one of them said specifically about that woman that, in fact, she had a date already for CS, that is cesarean section, and she was billed to actually go through that process, that procedure in the hospital. And, it was one of the pleas. It was a very emotional video watching for me, and it was one of the pleas, and we hoped that at least with that kind of information would, get something cheery, but it appears as though, well, she had to give birth right there in the camp of the terrorists. There's so much that comes to mind, but honestly, I'm lost for words this morning. Maokwe?
How did I know this was going to come to me immediately? Kayode, I really can appreciate, when you now say, thank God it's Friday with a sigh, because oftentimes the things that we experience on this show on a daily basis, it's not exactly, it's not just a job to us. We are Nigerians and we feel everything that happens on the front pages more than, I don't know, because some people can afford the luxury of shutting out. I mean, you can close shop and just say, you know what, I don't want to listen to any news. We do not have that luxury, and every time you put yourself into it, every time you throw yourself into it because you want to be able to deliver and also, to be able to be the voice for those who do not have a voice, it does take its toll on you. And I think that people can appreciate when you say, well, it is a brand new day indeed, but then there will be at least 2 days where you can afford to say, you know what, if I don't want to watch the news, even though you know that you're coming back to it on Monday and news is very interconnected. But this is what we've seen this morning, that, we have amongst us people who have no human feeling. So there are people who will argue that maybe they did have human feeling and did their best to ensure that she was able to deliver safely. Maybe that's why they're handing out the picture of the newborn like some trophy, that they won somewhere. But it is really a shame. It is really heartrending that even for a woman in that state, it didn't move them to pity to say, you know what, we'll release you, at least to your family members. Go and give birth in the comfort. Because when you are giving birth, you do not want to be surrounded by strangers. There's so much on your mind. I think Yorubas have a saying that when you've come out of giving birth successfully, apart from congratulations, which doesn't carry the weight of what they say Eku ewu omo. Ewu there is that you have been able to cross a situation of danger, because there is great danger in giving birth. There's one leg in life and one leg in the afterworld. So if that is the situation that she had to go through amongst people that have now held her captive, you have to question the state of mind of the people who have held her. That's on the one hand. On the other, this is happening also within the context where we have now heard that it is criminal to pay ransom. to terrorists, to kidnappers. And one would say ordinarily it should be. But that would be in a situation whereby we have invested as thoroughly as we ought to in our security capacity, in our security agencies, and in the capacity of our agencies to be able to safely extract those who have been kidnapped without at least maybe minimal harm coming to them. I know that there's also been stiffer penalties. The stakes are now higher for kidnappers. But this makes it a real high-stakes game because they say anyone found to have kidnapped anyone is now liable to die by death. I think death by hanging or so. A lot of states have passed that law, and now I understand it's now a federal, or it's been amended now at the federal level. The president is yet to give assent. But then, you know, you have to question if this was the situation for a lot of families who were thinking, my God, my loved one is here kidnapped, she's heavy, she's very pregnant. In fact, there is danger that lies ahead with this pregnancy. A cesarean was already scheduled as a result of whatever the doctor was saying. Would you really say that it was wrong to have paid ransom in that instance? So I don't know, we'll have to take a second look, I don't know, at those laws. But this, for me, continues to speak to, you know, the capacity of our security. Let's just call it what it is, the capacity of our security agencies. That weeks after, we're still talking about people in captivity. We have not been able, I understand that it's tricky to get them out and we want them out unhurt. But how long more? I mean, how much longer will it take? We now have a brand new baby. How many more weeks old will that baby be in captivity before the parent of that baby is released? It is a really emotional story, and it is one I cannot begin to wrap my head around to. I really lack words to describe just what, I don't know how the mother is feeling. The baby, of course, as long as the baby has the mother, the baby is fine. Hopefully nothing goes wrong medically. It's all the prayer we can pray. But, you know, apart from prayers, what else are we really doing to ensure that mother, baby, and all those who have been kidnapped are taken out of harm's way? That's the question this morning, gentlemen.
Well, maybe we begin by, well, or rather conclude by giving you an idea of the emotions of the people that spoke about this when they visited the NHRC recently. Take a look.
The cries of agony and heart-wrenching pain is palpable in this conference room at the National Human Rights Commission. Family members of the kidnapped travelers of the ill-fated AK-9 Abuja train shed uncontrollable tears. In an emotion-laden voice, they lament the agony the victims are going through in the hands of the bandits. They want government to rescue their loved ones.
There's a 7-month-old woman and 2 weeks now who only gives birth through cesarean section. Only God knows the trauma she's going through. We have other people that are sick, that require daily medication. They don't have access. There's a toddler who is 2 years old, for God's sake. We can only imagine what they're going through.
We can only plead, we can only beg the government, please, they should come to the aid of these people. Look at the pregnant woman, 7 pregnant now, 2 weeks, it's like almost getting to 8 weeks, and she's already been given an appointment for cesarean section. Is she going to be there at that period? Please come to the rescue of our family members. Come to the rescue of your citizens. Come to the rescue of your children, of your son, of your wives. Please, Mr. President, do something.
The representative of the Executive Secretary, Human Rights Commission, assures them of a quick response.
The Commission is actually monitoring the events closely in the media and also making contacts with the relevant authority. We will definitely collect the plea and also ensure that it is transmitted to the relevant authority. And we work closely with the relevant authority to ensure that the right thing is done.
The agony is written all over their faces as they continue to pray for the best for their loved ones.
So now we know the fate of the woman who was pregnant. We don't know, as Malcolm said, what the state of her health is. But that's just one of the people listed by the man who spoke earlier. That there is also a medical condition for a kid of about 2 years or 3 years. And then you see the emotions displayed by those people on the 14th of this month. Would you say that is play acting? Let someone who has feelings help allay the pains of the people who are feeling it now. Let's take a look at the papers. Let's begin with the Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and this is what you find on its front page. It is talking about the presidential elections, the 2023 general elections. APC presidential ticket. High stakes in Southwest as 5 aspirants eye ticket from zone. Osinbajo, Tinubu, Amosun, 2 others to split zones, 1,568 delegates. We're awaiting direction parties would take. That's described to Afenifere. We should strive for a national president. That one is in parentheses. Find out who said it on the front page. Well, the story is on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And there is a caption to that picture. Kaduna train attack. Terrorists release captives' newborn baby's picture. Find out the details of that one on page 5 of the paper. That's really, I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that story. Cardi, I don't know what to say to it. That's the Daily Trust newspaper.
Honestly, it's just different shades of, sadness. There's a certain joy as well. But I mean, having the picture of that minor on the front page is just heart-wrenching. But let's turn our attention to the Nigerian Tribune for you. Oh yeah, that's the front page of the Daily Trust there, just in case you missed it. But take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. This is what you find on the front page. 2023 presidency. Falano, 1999 Constitution, Supreme Court decisions have disqualified Jonathan. Yeah, that's what you have there. Now, this is like a new twist, quarter to 2023, and you just keep seeing some twists and turns. First, to the possibility of the former president joining APC and even running for president, and now this one, clearly, 2023 is intriguing.
As far as I'm concerned, I've not heard the former president say anything for or against whether or not he's going to contest.
Well, he said he hasn't declared yet.
Well, what do you expect him to say? I mean, people went to his office. I mean, what would you say?
Hey, I would say what's on the front page. In fact, I will tell you what the rider is. Cites Ladoja and Yako cases, says ex-president will spend more than 8 years if elected. Page 2. So amidst all of the politicking, let's not forget the very important component of governance, one of them security. And then an example is the victims of that train attack. And you see this one, I have 11 million ready votes. Atiku. Yeah, that's what he said. In fact, he said, I have 11 million votes in the kitty. That was what he said in his words. And yeah, there's also the story on, let me see, consensus. IBB didn't force us on North, Bauchi governor, and as well as other stories really on the front page. It's a full one. Not minding the fact that it's a Friday. I'll leave there for the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, take a look at The Guardian, and it has this Electoral Act. I didn't order Senate to remove Section 8412, Buhari tells court. So that's on the front page. Says he only expressed concern. Malami, only appeal court can upturn judgment against Section 8412. Bajabia Miller advises political appointees to resign. Falana describes Section 84 as draconian. APC insists Amechi Ngige Wajuba not obliged to resign before Monday. So you have all of the details on page 6 of the paper. And you also have a number of other stories just under that particular story. Efforts to restart local manufacture of vaccines suffer setback. The big story is on pages 4 and 5 for you. And politics, of course, is still taking the cake. Omo Agege insists Okowa took 150 billion naira loan. Oba Obinino Kate Oshibajo as group counters Falana on Jonathan's eligibility. So you have all of that on the front page. You also have on the corner, police arrest Guba aspirant Dagogo despite protest by Ijo youths. And that Kaduna train attack, terrorists release picture of baby born in captivity. Should we start appealing that at least the terrorists will develop a heart of humanity and see how they can release that mother and baby to, you know, go back to her family so that they truly can rejoice in the birth of a brand new baby? I don't know what to say, to be honest. Maybe we should. Page 46 will give you details. Let's leave it there for The Guardian.
Friday this morning is talking about politics. And it's really interesting because it is something that I think, a conversation that I think the NDLEA has started. Political parties reject drug test for aspirants. That story is on page 4. Says it's an affront. Warn NDLEA not to toy with politicians. CSOs divided over planned drug test. Test not to stigmatize aspirants, says NDLEA. And, you know, it really made me go into the Constitution.
Just to see, right?
To look at, you know, what are the disqualification or qualification matrix.
You must have gone to section 137.
I went to section 137. How did you know? Have you been there?
I met you there, or we met there, literally.
You know, it talked about one of them saying someone who vying for the office of president must not be a lunatic, but
must be of sound mind.
Of sound mind. So, and then it says something by law or something like that. I'm wondering, is there law? The law?
But, you know, we see some of them do physical tests. They jog and show that, hey, I've got the physicality to go through the rigor. I mean, nobody really asks them to, but they want to show you that I can run, literally, you know, run and figuratively. But it looks like the drug test is a big hurdle to cross.
How do they exercise the mind? Just to be sure, because if you have physical fitness, sound physical fitness, how do you...
You know, one of the mails that we got was someone asking, also ask them if they pay their taxes and all of that. Let's even just broaden this, not just, you know, the drug test, but hey.
Well, right beside the picture on the front page, that image on the front page is this one. Nobody can rig 2023 elections, PMB tells politicians, okay? Denies order in Senate to remove Section 8412 from Electoral Act. Well, better understanding of this will come as we go along, if you stay with us on this program this morning. Right above the major story, 8 years after, 2 Chibok girls get master's degrees. Some cheering news, you would say? That's the leadership newspaper today.
Well, next up is Vanguard. One of the shortest headlines I've seen this week. That's what you find on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. It's simple. How I became VP. Oshimbajo. Must be a very pregnant story. Short words, yes, but quite pregnant, I imagine. A couple of writers says he was surprised when Buhari nominated him as running mate. Intrigues that led to his nomination. You see, why I'm telling this story, and I mean, it goes on and on, how we chose Oshimbajo presidency source. I'm most prepared for president. So you find that one on page 2. So the vice president continues his, you know, journey across the country, and essentially it's in a build-up to this 2023 election, which is already intriguing, I must say. Of course, that story, terrorist release, picture of baby born in captivity. You know, it's pretty difficult to balance that one also, because it's something that is coming from that camp of the terrorists. So, I mean, it's a picture. They attach a narration or narrative to it. So,
How do you validate, right?
Exactly. So there's also that one to consider. A couple of other stories. Workers' Day, Eid al-Fitr, FG declares May 2nd, 3rd, public holidays, good for all the...
Slow down. So that's how many days now?
2 days.
Today?
That's, I think,
4
I don't
days.
really care. Good luck to those who enjoy public holidays. It's for you. It's for a section of the public. Oh dear. There's Mr. and Mrs. On the front page. Very interested Mr. and Mrs. this morning. But let's leave it there for Vanguard newspaper.
Well, look at this one on the front page of New Telegraph. Party chieftain Jonathan Better in 2015 if APC gives him 2023 ticket. Okay, pages 2, 4, and 6. Queries party's desperation to win presidency. Built roads, second Niger bridge in southeast despite poor poll performance or poor poll results from zone that's ascribed to the president. Buhari tells court he didn't order Senate to remove section 8412 of Electoral Act. So that story is also on the front page, even though I'm still trying to understand this particular story, this particular headline. Maybe you can help me. You can tweet it at us if you understand. Jonathan Better in 2015 if APC gives him 2023 ticket. Okay. Look at this. Gbajabiamila, insecurity threat to Nigeria's existence, says it portends great danger for Africa and world if it persists. Troops rescue 669 hostages in 3 weeks. That's ascribed to Defense Headquarters. We celebrate that, Defense Headquarters. We just want that, these others, very obvious, high-profile cases also be resolved, like this Kaduna kidnap victims. But we shouldn't also make light of the progress that has seen 669 hostages released in 3 weeks, according to the Defense Headquarters. Terrorists release kidnapped train victims' newborn baby picture. That is also on the front page for you. PDP ticket, I deserve right of first refusal, says Atiku. Find out why that is, pages 2 and 4. And just on top of the nameplate, IMF 6 end to subsidy for oil windfall benefits. Diversification key to Nigeria's growth. That's also on the front page. Look at this story. ASUU, NLC threatens 3-day warning strike. Take center stage. APC, PDP have failed Nigerians. Falana tells Labour. So that story is also there. And just in case you're wondering if the AGF was going to join the race or not, it's there on the front page. 2023 AGF Malami joins race, declares for Kebbi Guba. That's also there on the front page. Let's leave it there for New Telegraph.
New Telegraph, I was thinking, is there like a trophy or something if I explain or tell you what I think about the front page headline? Because I think I understand it. So maybe, I think the point is, get a copy of a New Telegraph and find out what it means, right? But I think I have an understanding of it, really.
Well, for your information, Kayode, this is not Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Nigerian News Direct this morning has this one. NNPC, FIRS, DPR, others generate 28.02 trillion naira in 3 years, as subscribed to NATI. Find that story on page 4 of the paper this morning. And a number of other interesting stories. 2023 presidential election, mixed reactions trail Jonathan's eligibility. I haven't even heard the man say anything substantive, really. Oh, Christ. Anyway, stories on page 2. And that's the papers this morning. We're back after now to take on the issues for the day, so please grab a cup of coffee, cocoa, or cocoa. We'll be right back.
The patience of our members has been tasked beyond tolerable limit. NEC therefore resolved to embark on a 4-week rollover total and comprehensive strike beginning from Monday, 14th February 2020, which is today.
On February the 14th, St. Valentine's Day, the National Executive Council of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, announced a 1-month warning strike. On the expiration of the 4-week warning strike, it was extended by 2 months, against expectations of a full-scale indefinite strike. Academic activities have been grounded. Usual quietness takes center stage in campuses since the strike was activated in its chapters across universities in Nigeria. What more do you need to know about the details of ASUU's demand? The payment of earned academic allowance, the replacement of the Integrated Personnel Payroll Information System with the University Transparency and Accountability System, improved funding of state universities, and funding for revitalization of public universities, among others.
The NIDA report is 1. The renegotiation is 2. These are 2 key things that they gave time limit to. And the time limit given to for these issues to us, we don't know why it should be so long, up to 3 months.
But government maintains that ASUU's decision to prolong the industrial action is unwarranted.
No employee, no worker, by any principles at work. No employer dictates to your employer how to pay you. The important thing is for your salaries, remuneration to be paid as and when due.
The industrial action is now in its 10th week. While the strike lasts, it's believed that representatives of the Academic Staff Union of Universities and the federal government have been meeting to resolve contending issues. And it's expected that the truce will be reached before the extended warning strike expires.
Well, that's the general state of public universities in Nigeria. As of today, a strike that began on February the 14th has now lingered. Now, public universities are broken down. We have 5 federal universities. Yes, on the one hand, we have state universities. So the latest twist to this, which is why we're going to be having this conversation this morning, is that the Kaduna State University's school management actually released a statement saying that, you know what, school resumes on May the 9th, and there was no mention or reference of the ASUU strike. And as you would expect, a lot of people thinking, wait a minute, is KASU, which is the acronym for Kaduna State University, is now exempted from the general ASUU struggle, as they put it. Lots of questions. Is this the hand of the state government at work? There's been some response to that as well. But what does this mean in the whole scheme of things, first for KASU and for the general strike situation in Nigeria? And perhaps is this, you know, a move towards a situation? Well, let's have that conversation with Dr. Peter Adamu, who's the chairman, Academic Staff Union of Universities, KASU chapter, is also a lecturer at Department of Economics, Kaduna State University. He joins us via Zoom from Kaduna. Good morning, Doctor. Thank you for joining us on the program. First, let me get your response to that, what do I say, circular, the letter by KASU saying that school resumes on May the 9th.
Good morning, and thank you for having me this morning. We actually saw a memo online flying on social media. It was shocking to us because the procedure to open or reopen or shut down university lies solely in the hands of the Senate of the university. So it's actually shocking because, to the best of my knowledge, there was no Senate meeting that took place for the decision to be arrived at. And We just saw it actually. So it's shocking to us as well, because there are procedures. University is a system. It's not just somewhere where someone can just sit down in his office or anywhere to dish out instructions or directives. So this is where we are. But the information that I will pass at this moment is that we have not changed our decision. Our decision is that we are still observing the rollover strike action. And at the moment, we are already in the 7th week of the 8-week rollover strike declared by our union. So this is where we are.
So are you saying, in spite of that memo which you have seen, in spite of the position of the school, you're not going back to work on May the 9th?
Okay, we actually are guided by decisions of NEC because we are members of the union. And the Constitution of Nigeria guarantees that right. That is, we have rights to belong to a trade union, and our trade union is ASUU. And at the moment, we are still observing the strike action. Nothing has changed. And then again, before we started this strike action, we communicated to the university management. And this decision was taken without even the input of the union. So as far as we're concerned, this is alien to us.
So is that to say that that memo, that purported memo, allegedly put out by one Adamu Bargo, PRO of Kaduna State University, who spoke on behalf, or who wrote on behalf of the management of the university, is untrue?
It's not untrue, of course, because he wrote his name there, and he has claimed to be the author of that information. But again, like I stated earlier, our members are resolute, they are committed to the struggle. And again, we should get it clear that this struggle is for the benefit of the university. We have about 48 state universities in the country and less federal universities. So if monies are released for revitalization or revamping of the university system, state universities benefit more. In fact, since 2014 to date, I think Kaduna University have gotten more than $1 billion, I think, or 1.5 billion or so. And if you come to Kaduna University, you will call it TED Fund and Needs Assessment University, because it is from this struggle that we get to have infrastructure in place, lab equipment, and so many other things that aid the activities in the university. So come to think of it, that we pull out of the strike or whatever that it is that the government is saying. So does that mean that if these monies are actually shared between public universities, the university management will write maybe to the government to say, no, we don't want to participate in the sharing of this money? So it's actually disheartening that at this time, people that are the greatest beneficiaries of this struggle will try to sabotage the struggle.
Well, Dr. Adamu, when was the last time the university management communicated with your chapter of ASUU?
All right, I think we had a meeting with the university management last week. They called us for a meeting, and we reiterated our position that we are on strike and nothing has changed.
Was there ever any indication that such a memo would be put out by the university?
Not at all. That's why I said it's shocking to us, because nobody actually told us that this was going to be sent out to the public.
Well, part of the memo also hinted at, or tried to distance itself from claims that the Kaduna State government may have attempted to compel the university management to put out that memo and thereby compel students to resume and compel your chapter of ASUU to resume. Has that, do you suspect that maybe there was any such thing that may have been going on?
I actually saw the second memo shared by the PRO, absolving the state government from evacuation or forced to reopen the university. And I'm very sure the state government wouldn't do that because the university has a governing council, and the governing council is the employer of the lecturers and everyone in the university. So I don't think the state government will meddle into the affairs of Kaduna State University. It's just unfortunate that some people somewhere are trying to be more Catholic than the Pope, if I use that phrase, to want to issue directives that will not work. And they are very much aware that it will not work because our members are very committed to the struggle, because the struggle is not for selfish purpose. We also are affected by this strike. Our members are students in the university. Some are pursuing their PhD, some are pursuing their masters. We also have children. Most of our members also have children in the same university. So why would we not want the university to reopen? But we know that this cost is just cost, and that is for the betterment of the system.
Right. So this struggle you speak about, let's break it down, because whether we like it or not, yes, there's a general ASUU, but we have federal universities and state universities. And tell us, for your own chapter, what grouse do you have with the state government? What are the things that the state government ought to have done, or perhaps you had an agreement with the state government and the state government failed to, keep up to its own side of the bargain?
All right. The university system actually is structured in a way that the governing council runs the university on behalf of the government. And let me make this point very clear. ASUU is one. ASUU is a trade union. We don't have a registration for ASUU in KASU. So it is just one union that we have. The only thing that we do is to do the administrative aspect of ASUU from the national perspective. So we have a number of local issues, of course. And for years, we've written to the university management. Even recently, I think we wrote a number of issues to the chairman of governing council, and we have requested for a meeting with the council of the university, and we're yet to get replies from them.
So are you on strike? Just to be clear, let's understand. Are you on strike currently? No, I'm not done with the question. I know you're on strike. Are you on strike because of the local problems or because of the federal issues you talk about?
Right. The federal issues actually affect all public universities, regardless of whether they are state or federal. For instance, the salary structure of public universities, regardless of whether they are federal or state, is the same. The condition of service is being negotiated by the union, that is ASUU. So this suggests that whatever agreement reached between the union and the government will affect members in both federal universities and state universities. But at the moment, before a local chapter actually declares strike action in a local branch, there are procedures that must be followed. One, the branch must approach the zone. The zone will have to send some delegation to the university to see if these issues actually can be resolved at the zonal level. If it cannot be resolved at that level, the same issue will be tabled at the national. The NEC will take decision to send some people also from national to meet the university management. And if the issues are not resolved, then the local chapter can be granted permission to now embark on a local strike action. But at the moment, the strike action which is in place is the national strike action.
So to be clear, you don't have any issues, at least big enough to warrant a strike. No, pardon me. You don't have any issues, at least big enough to warrant a strike with the state government of Kaduna State. Am I right?
No, we have a lot of issues that warrant a strike action. And again, after this national strike action, there's also a possibility that this might happen at the local chapter.
Okay, so you're saying that the strike you're on is not even for the issues you have with the state government. It's for the issues that federal universities that are under federal government have with the federal government.
No, public universities, please, not federal universities.
Are you funded by the federal government?
To a large extent. I wish you try to take a trip to Kaduna so that you see that 95 or 99% of the projects that you have are from struggles like this. That is, you have the needs assessment, which is part of the struggle that we are in today. That is for the revitalization of public universities. So if such monies are released, lecture theaters are built, lab equipment are purchased, these monies do not come from the state government. And again, TED Fund, as you know, is a product of this same struggle. So to a large extent, we could say that the universities, state universities, are mostly funded by the federal government.
When I say funded now, I was speaking to you in particular as a lecturer. Is your salary paid by the state government or the federal government?
The salaries are actually paid by the state government.
So don't you think it's fair maybe to have a negotiation, a sit down with the state government, which of course you're under its purview, to have those issues resolved rather than have a blanket kind of arrangement? Because what state governments are saying now is, well, some of these issues are not with us. So why are we essentially being punished for a sin, in quotes, that is not ours?
It's actually very surprising that you hear state governors mention that. How many of the state governors have been funding the university? Very, very few. How many of them have deliberately budgeted for theaters to be built in their state universities? Only a limited number. So because they pay salary, it's just like a support system to keep the state universities, floating. Because if you ask them to come to maybe fund a state university, a lot of them cannot do it. And the reason why they are floating state universities is because, of course, they know that public universities will be funded by the federal government through their agencies, state fund, and this kind of arrangement of needs assessment. So that is why most of them will tell you that they don't have issues. But of course, there are lots and lots of issues in state universities.
Well, you may want to let us into some of those peculiar, as you call it, local issues that you as a lecturer and staff of the Kaduna State government through Kaduna State University have peculiarly with the management of the school. Because when you said that you wrote for a meeting and you're yet to get one, you also mentioned the fact that you had a meeting with them last week. So I'm wondering if those issues couldn't have been tabled at that meeting.
All right, we've been battling with these issues, and there are a number of issues. One, we have in 2017, September particularly, precisely, we were on a strike action, and part of our salary was not paid. We also have issues of end academic allowance for about 4 sessions. We have issues of promotion arrears for a number of years. We have issues of group life insurance. We have issues of non-remittance of pension. The list goes on and on. We have a long list. So we actually have tried to be as magnanimous as possible to allow the university time to raise these funds so that, things can be done rightly in the university. And again, all of these problems now are now causing other problems in the university. We have a lot of young academics leaving the university in their drove, going to better place. Some are leaving the country because the condition of service actually is very, very difficult in the university.
Well, you said that you had a meeting last week. Were these issues allowed on the table or not?
They actually refused to present these issues. They are still telling us that they are working to resolve some of these issues.
You said that these issues started from 2017, but from the question that my colleague asked you, the issues of ASUU, the federal body dates back 2009. Some even date back as far as 2001. Is KASU also having such a backlog of issues with the state government?
Yes, of course. I actually presented to you that one of the issues is non-remittance of pension also, from 2009 to 2019. So all of these issues were captured in our letter sent to the chairman of the Governor Council. And we're here to get response on them.
Is this something that happens with all state universities, where the lecturers that are employed by the state governments connected to the terms of and conditions of engagement as far, by the federal government as well?
Yes, the arrangement of state universities is such that lecturers from federal universities, are given incentive to come teach in state universities. Else, nobody wants to come to state universities because, of course, the governors will want to use some kind of policies to frustrate them. So, in most cases, if you're employed in a state university, it will be mentioned clearly that your emolument and whatever allowances are as what is obtained in the federal university. So that is why the condition of service in state universities and federal universities are the same. Or else you
Dr. Adamu,
maybe less. Yeah.
Pardon me, because honestly, this is dragging for too long, the strike, and I imagine it's affecting you, the students, and a lot of other things. It has a ripple effect, which is why, at least as much as we can, we maybe point to possible solutions here and there, and I was hoping that this might be one of it, have a sit down with the state government. But would you be willing then, or would you be opposed to a no work, no pay policy?
All right, I think for clarification, people should understand that academic staff do not just teach. Our work is threefold. We do research, personal research. We also do community service and teaching. So at the moment, it is just the teaching aspect that we're not doing. In fact, just last week, I published a paper using my same university and my country, of course, because it was published abroad. So we are still doing the other part of our work.
But clearly, teaching is a major part of the work you're meant to do, if we were maybe to break it down. Research. So what percentage would you give to research?
I think over 50% also, about 50% of course of what we do. Because if you have a university and you don't do research, you don't have a university, you have just a school.
So what percentage is teaching?
Teaching? I actually don't have to give you percentages.
Well, you just gave me a percentage for research, Dr. Adamu. So, I mean, if you say over 50, so teaching should be, what, 40? Because there are other things like community service. So teaching is 30?
Because I said research actually is the major component of our work. Research is the major component of our work in the university. So that portion of our work has not been withdrawn. We're still doing it. If you go around.
Oh dear. Well, I was hoping to get that angle clear, but
lecturers are still, working on researches.
Okay, well, Dr. Adamu, I lost the major part of what you were saying because of the connection glitch. But just to be clear, you say that really you're still doing research, and I wonder how, because, well, I know that your students also play a major role in the research you do. Now, SANU, NASU, of course, they're on strike as well. So how exactly are you carrying out the research? And, I mean, some would say, well, teaching is actually a major part as well. So how exactly are you working around that?
Sorry, I didn't get that. The network is actually breaking.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, the question is simple. How exactly are you going around the research? Because I know the students, of course, the teaching component feeds into the research or has some sort of interplay. And of course, SANU, NASU, they're on strike as well. So how exactly are you doing that?
Yeah, of course, we are the lecturers, those in the sciences, They have labs. They have access to their labs, of course, because they are not students. They are lecturers, so they can have access to their labs, do whatever they will do. Those in the social sciences, they have access to their personal libraries, and as well the university library. They also read, to do such researches. Some also do their researches using their online platforms. They have the internet and so many other things.
Right.
So that actually covers for it.
So it's, on a final note, it's safe to say that you're not on strike then? You're just not teaching students?
It's all right. The aspect of the strike that you get to know is when we do not teach. Of course, you wouldn't know when I'm doing my personal research.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So you're not on strike. Lecturers in Nigeria...
We're on strike, actually.
No, you're not.
Lecturers
You just said you're still doing...
They are withdrawn. Listen, let me get it very clear. Let me put it very, very clear here. If lecturers are on strike, in most cases, it is the teaching component that is being withdrawn.
Okay, I wonder how fair that is really, because I'd expect that we want to invest in the human capital. But Dr. Adamu, I really hope that this impasse is resolved from the government side, ASUU, and also our students can be back in public schools. But we'd like to thank you so much. We've been speaking with Dr. Peter Adamu, who's the chairman, ASUU KASU chapter. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we'll go to break now, and when we return, we'll turn our attention to politics, which influence governance and, of course, would influence the kind of policies and maybe this ASUU strike that we're talking about. So that's in a moment. Stay with us.
Members of civil society organizations, representatives of political parties, youth and women groups are leaving no stone unturned in their bid to ensure more inclusiveness of women and the youth ahead of the 2023 general elections. This forum brings together experts who are challenging the current status quo, which they say creates setbacks for the active participation of groups identified as marginalized because of stringent conditions by political parties.
If you really want to appreciate that women have been there as voters, women have been there along the line, this is the time to change the tide. And we hope that, with the women who are coming out, because what we used to have is women are not coming out. Those who have come out, have you given them the chance? They are even introducing free, we are told some of the parties introducing free collection of funds by women. How free is free?
Reducing the cost of your nomination forms is not enough. In fact, you're just scratching the surface, because we all know that the party nomination forms is nothing compared to the campaign funding and the campaign expenses that candidates will have to make. So I'd like to urge you, please reduce the cost of your nomination forms.
A breakdown of women's representation in the parliament since the return to democracy in 1999 to date shows an abysmal performance from 2.4% between 1999 to 2003, a rise to 4% between 2003 to 2007, and then plummeting to 3.6% between 2019 to 2023.
In 1999 to 2003, 97.6% of members of the State Houses of Assembly were men, and to see that in 2019 to 2023, this figure is still 95.5%.
With the message clear, representatives of political parties appear ready to change the narrative, beginning with the 2023 general elections.
We need you women to take the mantle of this government. We have to work assiduously to actualize our dreams.
The call for better representation of women and youth in the political space has been a long-running advocacy. Encouraging the participation of these critical groups in both elective and appointed positions is one area political parties should take seriously going into the 2023 general elections.
as much as you gripe about the emotional burden of your work, this job certainly has its privileges, its perks and privileges. And one of them is being able to talk about issues that really affect you in a very upfront manner. This morning, we are being joined by Dr. Betta Edu, who is a national woman leader of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, and also former Commissioner for Health in Cross River State. Ma'am, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, pretty long conversation we've been having on women, and it looks like it's happening in almost every facet. Look at just before we went into that report, the advert which we saw was about an organization advertising just how they support women businesses, women in general, so to speak. And then we now have that report which was talking about how women need to be more involved in politics. And for a moment, when I saw that you were now national woman leader, I'm like, oh, why didn't she just take up a role? She was pretty vocal at the state level. Why isn't she running for an elective position in Cross River State or maybe at the national level? Was there a reason for that? I'm just asking.
Yeah, so basically, I want to be that prompter for women all across the nation. And this portfolio offers me a larger platform to reach more women. I'm sure, you know, before this time, I used to be the Commissioner for Health in Cross River State and the chairman of all the Commissioners of Health in Nigeria. And my influence was basically around the health sector, which is my core sector-specific intelligence, having that grab on it, right? Politics was also one thing which I was very strong at. But when an opportunity came to be the voice for women, to actually begin, negotiate, intercede, lobby for women, I thought it was a great opportunity to make many women. And since I came on board, I think it's just about a month ago, I've been very, very active, encouraging women, sensitizing them, holding programs that create awareness and help them to key into leadership, into politics, into governance. Remember, we have very low female participation in governance, in leadership, in politics, in Nigeria, and this is that rhetoric that I'm here to change.
You don't think that would have been better served if you had run for elective office and maybe, for instance, at the National Assembly, where we're in dire need of laws that engender equality amongst the sexes, where our women are ever so few, and I know that that's one of the things you said you're speaking about and you're lobbying for, but do you think that, because...
So probably if I ran for the elections, I'll just be one extra woman in the legislation. But being here, I can facilitate for up to at least 50 or more women to get into the National Assembly. So when these laws go to the floor of the Assembly, we have more women that can lobby their colleagues, that can defend it and ensure that it's passed and that it gets into the law. So really, I think it's about the self-interest and interest of a larger number of women.
Okay. So it's interesting to me that both of the major parties now, the national woman leader of the two major parties, have a very strong link with Cross River State. I don't know, maybe there's Cross River, which we do not know now about its women.
I think the governor of Cross River State, Senator Professor Ben Ayadi, has shown very good example that indeed Nigeria can take a leaf from. First, as I speak to you, we have about 7 commissioners as women at the State Executive Council. There are over 40 special advisors that are women. There are over 100 special assistants that are women, and the number goes on and on. When you come to elective positions, we have 4 chairmen of councils that are women. Almost all, I think about 16 vice chairmen are actually women. And when you go to the councillors, we have almost 20 councillors in Cross River State that are women. And then, of course, the list just goes on and on board's appointment and the rest of it, heading parastatals. You have a lot of women. I used to be the DG of Cross River State Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and as I speak to you, the DG is still a woman. In Saka, it's a woman. I can just go on and on and on. So it's really a state that has given that prominence, mainstreaming for women. And I'm sure every party would want to shop from there to get a woman to speak for it.
So much as, you know, the women have been given a prominent place, thankfully, in Cross River State. And as I did mention, I'm choosing my words very carefully because I'm not very certain that the woman leader of the PDP, the opposing party, is from Cross River. But I know that she has very strong links with Cross River, having taught in the University of Calabar. So that's,
she is.
Oh, thank you for confirming that. So now that we know that, that definitely. Do you see the battle that women have to, the hurdles that women have to cross in terms of increasing the number of representation? Do you see it in terms of opposition, or do you see it in terms of women having to come together across the divide to see how they can increase the numbers of women representation in the National Assembly or in government in general?
I think women should come together in one voice across party lines, across political lines, religious lines, ethnic lines. We should come together in one voice to ask for better women representation at all levels, whether it's elective or appointed positions. We should come all out to ask for it. It's really, really very sad. The very few numbers of women we have almost everywhere. And you see, it starts from the elective position, it trickles down into the appointed position, it trickles down into job employment, it trickles down into contracts, to almost every facet, right? And you see, it has that ripple effect even on health, on agriculture, on everything else. Once a woman is not empowered, right, it affects her health. You hear very high level of maternal mortality in Nigeria, right? Some of this is caused by the fact that the woman cannot make a simple decision to go to the hospital on time. Why? She's not financially empowered. She's not educated. She doesn't even know how to speak up for herself. So she sits down there and she dies. Her baby dies. So we need to, at all costs, as a nation, we must be deliberate about mainstreaming women. We must be deliberate about empowering them. And that's what the focus of the APC is. We're out to mainstream women. We're out to empower them. And we have clear policies that have been lined up, directed at this, and implementation is already ongoing.
Well, when we now come to the APC, there are very, very strong questions as to how the party has performed in terms of ensuring that there are more women in governance. You have seen the figures in terms of how many women are now in the National Assembly. The figures have dipped even further. Before, we used to have at least a minimum of 7%. And rather than improve on that, we are now at between 3 to 4%, which is certainly not a good marker. We've seen how gender bills have fared under this administration. They haven't done quite well. We've seen how affirmative action, which was at 35% at least for appointed positions within the federal cabinet. Hopefully, the idea was a lot of states would take pointers from that. That has not been the case in this administration. So there have been major questions as to the fate of women under the APC. So some people will say that your task is certainly an uphill one as national woman leader of this party in ensuring that there are more women running for office and more women getting elected. How did you perceive your role when you were taking up this particular job?
So first and foremost, I saw it as an avenue to help improve on things, right? The party has tried to give some inclusion to women over time at different levels. But right now, we need to step that inclusion up to the next level. We need to get more deliberate about it. We need to come forward with policies that helps us to actually achieve the result on the ground. We need to be practical about it. And this is why I'm here. First and foremost, the party was able to elect me, of course, as probably the youngest national woman leader in any political party in Nigeria, just to get in a section of people who feel politics is not really their thing, right? We have a lot of young women who are out there. In fact, they make up majority of the voters that go out to vote. And sometimes they have that a party or they're not interested. And this is because they feel this is not their thing. Maybe it's for the older women. We're not supposed to be here and all of that. And it reduces the number. At the same time, We have professional women who used to think, oh, I'm core professional. I shouldn't be in politics. I shouldn't be in party. I shouldn't get myself involved in all of that business. But here I am. I'm a professional who has risen to the height of my profession, but I am still actively involved in politics trying to make the difference. So it's to appeal to this group of people to join forces with those who we already have on board so that we can have an increased representation. Yes, good and fine. I know it's going to be an uphill task to go out and lobby and convince the men that we're partners in progress and they can help women to be mainstreamed. They can support women in so many ways to be mainstreamed. But then I'm not bothered by that because I know that I have the full backing of the party to do so. We came into an NWC and we said, as part of our strategies, which we want to increase female representation across board, let the women get the forms free of charge. And it was almost 100% nod to it. Yes, 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 give the women the forms free of charge. And I want to tell you this for certain, right? As at yesterday, which was day 2, of the sales of forms, I can categorically tell you, in fact, at the end of day 1, we already had 2 women who have bought forms for governorship, who had gotten the forms for governorship. It's free. We had women who, so many, in fact, majority of the people who were picking the forms were women, right? So that's the starting point. Like I said, it's not the end. It's just the starting point, one of our strategies. Another one which we're doing actively is to lobby and then work on our delegates to see how these women can cross from being aspirants to becoming candidates.
You know, we've been on this conversation of women inclusion in governance for quite a while, and I've listened to some women, women politicians speak, and they have said that this giving candidates forms for free is actually one of the ways women are disempowered. They do not see it as an empowerment for women because they say that when they're talking about zoning or other sort of arrangements within the party, the people who are given least consideration are those who got their forms for free. It will seem that already, because we've seen how, you know, you've seen the presidential form within your party. It's going for 100 million naira. That has not deterred the people who are declaring right, middle, left, and center from declaring. And people know why they're declaring. It's high-stake politics. It's how you get relevant in the scheme of things. There is a new provision within the Electoral Act that says that, you know, all the candidates, assuming the party is going to go for consensus, all the candidates must agree that that is the consensus candidate in writing. Now, if you are a candidate, assuming a woman candidate who got your form for free, what real powers for negotiation do you have when push comes to shove and maybe you have to drop your ambition for the consensus candidate that has been picked by a party? Would you really be given as much consideration as those who have, you know, given huge sums of money to be able to purchase these forms?
So first and foremost, at no point is zoning based on whether you paid money for a form or not. APC does not zone based on whether the monies are paid or not. There are other considerations that actually guide zoning. That's number one. Secondly, it's not, you have to pay for an interest, expression of interest form. You must pay for that before you go to pick up the forms, which are free. So you have put some commitment to say, I'm interested in this. And then thirdly, I'll state this very clearly. The options for women were usually very limited. Remember, most of them are not financially as empowered as the male counterparts. So when you say pick the form, maybe one woman would be able to pick a form for senatorial seat. And for any reason, that woman does not meet the qualification, automatically she's gone. And that slot for a woman is gone. So a male counterpart, maybe there are 5, there's 6 that have picked the forms. They would choose one person from the male counterpart, and that one goes through. Maybe the woman might have issues with the requirement, she's not meeting up the deadline, or something. She didn't submit the form on time, or she made an error when she was filling the form, or something, and she's screened out. And that's the end of it. So women don't get that slot anymore. But today, as we speak, I can give you an example of a state in the north where we have one person who have picked up a form for a governorship candidate, a woman. We have 3 people who have picked up forms for senatorial seats, women. We have 6 women that have picked up forms for House of Reps. We have 12 women that have picked up forms for the House of Assembly. If you are a party and you want to bring out a consensus with this number of women that have picked up forms all across this seat, you will definitely try to pick women amongst this as part of your consensus candidate. So it opens up the window, it increases the options that are available, and it brings up that probability that more women will get elected into offices and would represent women.
Well, that's your hope. That's the hope that you're having, sure. That, you know, with more women, you know, picking up the forms, that if the...
So it's not just hoping, we want to walk through it to the end. So the different levels of it, from the form picking, which we have tried to give women that leverage, and then to the primaries, and then the campaigns itself, which we intend to support women that are running under our party from the APC Women's Wing.
Tell us about that, the supporting women, because listening to Samson there, Samson Itodo talking about how we know that the price for forms is the smallest part of the problem. That, I mean, we also have a few, how will I put it now, a few people whom we know personally who are, you know, running, who have declared interest. I happen to know a woman who says that this is just a stage of consultation, and the amount of money involved in consultation alone, you know, is mind-blowing. So the huge questions as to, you know, and that is before you even get to the primaries and before you know, cross the hurdle to campaigns. That getting to the primaries and being picked as a candidate is a major hurdle. In some instances, perhaps it's the real hurdle that you have to cross. So tell us about how you intend, after they have maybe finally seen themselves to become candidates. You know, so there were questions as to how much support can you really provide in the process of consultation. But after they have become candidates, what sort of support are you looking to give them during the campaigns?
So we're coming from 2 angles. First of all, before they become candidates, at the level of the primaries, we have what we call the Progressive Women's Trust Fund. And women are making contributions into this trust fund to support other women. That's why I say women fighting for women, women speaking with one voice. We're making contributions into this trust fund to support women who are running. When we look through the list, right now we're compiling the list of all the aspirants. When you buy a form, we get your data down. When we look through the list, where we have conflict of interest, we'll call our women together and say, look, let's have our own little form of consensus at this point so that we can all throw our weight behind this person to scale through the primaries. Once you've scaled through the primaries, of course, at the primaries, we'll have to financially back them up to be able to scale through that point. Once you scale through that point, really, in the real sense of it, you become the business of the party. So the party which you have registered to run on their platform takes the responsibility to ensure that the party delivers itself on your candidature in that location where you're running. And from the women's wing, we have already earmarked how we'll be supporting female candidates across the country that would be running for elections. We'll support them in so many ways. All of these are strategies which our party is bringing on board to ensure that women actually are moved from being a candidate to actually winning the elections, and we're there to represent other women.
Your party, it would seem, had a golden opportunity to make all of this easy peasy. First and foremost, there have been talk about how it would have been a lot easier if we had affirmative action. You know, the law demanding that, you know, quotas be filled by a certain percentage of women. And it would seem that we've missed those golden opportunities. We saw how the Constitution Amendment went and the protests that greeted that amendment afterwards. How are you helping your party understand the implications of this and how it demarcates them in the elections, especially when they're talking to women voters?
So first and foremost, I must at this point strongly commend the wife of the president. For the first time in the history of our country, the wife of a president went to the National Assembly to fight for the rights of women. She went with the Minister for Women Affairs and several other women. And then, of course, for several days, women were out there really raising a voice to say these are rights and they must be supported. And I'm happy that the House of Reps is beginning to reconsider all of the bills that were initially not passed, and after that the Senate would carry that on. And I believe strongly, hopefully, that we can be able to reconsider this and allow them to scale through.
Do we have that commitment already? Because
yes, the House of Reps, the Speaker.
Yes, the last we heard was the House, but we haven't heard a word from the Senate.
Yes, so we are working on that. We're lobbying with the Senate members and the Senate President, and very soon he'll be issuing out his commitment. But the House of Reps, they are already on it. But now we need to, as a party, work on the fundamental issues. You cannot have less than 20 people in the entire, women in the entire National Assembly and believe that a gender-sensitive bill will just swim through easily. It's not possible. So this is the time to fix the foundation so that when we come back with bills and we have over 60, 70 women at the National Assembly, it's a strong voice. They can lobby their colleagues and we'll be able to have a smooth scale through. So we are dealing with the foundation while still appealing to the leadership of the National Assembly to ensure that these bills are being passed as soon as possible. But then beyond this, as a party, we are resolved. You know, we have a monitoring and evaluation team in our party. They get to monitor. They get to look at, in fact, a new one was reconstituted with the new executive that came in. We monitor those who ran on the ticket and the platform of our party. And then we're asking, how well have you performed in this sector? How well have you performed on this topic? How well have you performed on this discussion? For the women discussion, we've done that evaluation and we're already sharing it with those persons who are affected to say, no, we must take a U-turn and ensure that women have that confidence in our party to come on board and run, and at the same time to give support, because that's another huge part of the work which we need to do. Sensitization. I'm glad we got like 8 months to run on this, to sensitize the public, to bring more women on board APC, sensitize them to support APC, believing that as we deliver on this next set of women into different positions, they would be accountable to us as women, they would fight for the rights of women, and they would ensure that there's gender mainstreaming for women.
What's your target? Can I ask you, what at the end of 2023, what exactly are you hoping to have achieved?
So first and foremost, we're hopeful, very hopeful, that we can have a first female governor at the end of 2023. We're also very, very hopeful that we can have several deputy governors. We already know states that have identified women and they're ready to run with them as deputy governors. We're really very happy about that. We're still lobbying some other states. Of course, you know about Ekiti. Of course, you know about Ogun and several other states that have women as deputizing our candidates in those states. We're also working on having at least 3 National Assembly members in every state. So it's either you do a Senate and 2 reps or 3 reps or whatever it is, but at least 3 National Assembly members from a state, minimum 2 from across all the states. That's really our target. And then when it comes to the House of Assembly, we're looking at between 6 to 9, depending on the number of people who are in the Assembly that can actually be women. That way we're sure that if bills come at the states that are gender, that's the female gender now, specific, those women can uphold it and ensure it goes through. If it comes at the National Assembly, we can have over 60 women on board the platform to ensure those bills scale through. This is the foundational stage. In fact, like I used to tell them, the next 35 days will say if we have victory or not. Because if we can get more women as candidates, then the probability of them becoming the re-elected officers is really very high.
Well, Dr. Betta Edu, I can't but wish you all the best in this lofty and very ambitious targets that you have set for yourself. We've been speaking with Dr. Betta Edu, who is a national woman leader of the All Progressives Congress and also former Commissioner for Health in Cross River State. Thank you once again for coming on Sunrise Daily.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
We'll take a break now. We'll be back shortly to discuss one other thorny issue. Please stay with us.
President Jonathan was sworn in as president on the 5th of May, 2010. So he spent a year before he contested in 2011 and won the election. So he's done 5 years already. He's therefore disqualified from contesting another election for a 4-year term. That means he will spend 9 years in office. Now, people are saying, oh, the law will only take effect when it was made in 2017. I will have been persuaded to go along with that argument. But in the case of Tony Obayori and Musa, Tony Obayori and PDP, the Supreme Court held that alteration, fourth alteration, number 21 of 2017, which came into force in 2018, affected the pre-elections that were filed in 2015. In this case, in these two cases, the appellant filed his pre-election cases in 2015. This law came into force 3 years later. And we tried to convince the court that the law cannot be retrospective. And the Supreme Court said no. An amendment of a constitution can be retrospective. And in this case,
there is the law, there is constitution, and then there is a pronouncement of the Supreme Court. How do they all differ? What have they got to do with the 2023 elections? You've heard Mr. Femi Falana, SAN there, postulating on a thing or two, one of those issues that's already making the rounds. That's a number of other issues we'll discuss this morning with Chukwuma Ezala, who is a legal practitioner, joins us here in the studio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning.
Well, you've heard Mr. Falana, and there are a number of people who are wondering along the same line, especially in this whole permutations about whether or not former President Goodluck Jonathan is qualified or is not qualified, will contest or not contest the presidency of the 2023 elections. Is it an issue of morality or legality?
I think we should first look at the issue of legality before we go into the issue of morality. Because the issue of legality will also look at his own constitutional rights vis-a-vis the constitutional rights of Nigerians, each Nigerian, not vis-a-vis the constitutional right of some vested interest. So number one is to look at, is he really legally qualified to run? I am not among the school of thought that says, oh, sentimentally he's not supposed to run. That's in the realm of sentiment. I have my own sentiments. But I am not to take my own sentiments to overturn the legal rights of individuals. Now, number one is he really qualified to run? This will be looked at when you look at the Constitution. The Constitution, by Section 137, stated those that cannot run. Number one is, after scaling through the other constitutional provisions of your age, political party sponsoring you, and all others, it came into who cannot run. And it says, those that have been elected into that office twice. And that is section 137, 1B. Those that have been elected into a particular office twice, that is in the case of an executive office like the office of the president or the office of the governor or vice president or deputy governor, that is one. So by virtue of that, the question is, has he been elected into the office of the president twice? And the answer is, of course, no. He was elected into the office of the president once in 2015. No, 2011. He was elected into the office of the vice president in 2007, along with late President Musa Yar'Adua.
Is that to say that when he was elected as running mate, he was not elected together on that same ticket?
No, yeah, when he was elected as running mate, it was as running mate, meaning that as vice, just like Atiku, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, he was elected as vice president and he still qualified to run for the office of the president. Was elected twice as vice president and he still qualified to run for the office of the president legally. But he is no longer qualified to run for the office of the vice president. That is in the case of Atiku Abubakar. But in the case of Jonathan, he was elected, one, for the office of the vice president first in 2007, then for the office of the president for the first time in 2011. In 2011. That was the first time he was elected. So the question becomes, having been sworn in to complete the unexpired term of President Yar'Adua, can it be said that he is now barred from contesting for the next election? And the answer is certainly no. He completed, because when you look at that section I just mentioned, you know, the section 137(1)B says when you are elected. Now, we now have the next issue.
Sorry, before we go off that, wasn't his election with the president as vice president also a presupposition that he is a standby president? And in this, in the effect, he eventually indeed became president because he was sworn in as president for 1 year before he contested. Isn't that presupposed that when he was elected vice president, he was elected as a standby president as well?
Yes, he was elected as a standby president. Just like you have now. You have President Muhammad Buhari. You have Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who has, one way or the other, been made acting president. That will not count as if he had become president.
He acted as president. He was not sworn in as acting president.
Let's not get into whether he was sworn in, because ordinarily before you even act as president, you ought to be sworn in. He was sworn in actually as acting president. But that's as acting president, not as president. So you can actually distinguish it between Jonathan taking over.
My apologies. Was he sworn in
as president?
To act as
yes, he was sworn in.
Acting president?
Yes, before you can actually become acting president. It's just like Jonathan. When President Yar'Adua was sick and could not be reached, he was sworn in as acting president first. Then later he was now sworn in as president when it was confirmed that President Yar'Adua could not continue. Before you exercise that office.
But that's a swear in behind closed doors?
Anyway, there is a way it's done, but let's leave that one and follow the main substance now.
Just because a lot of people might say, I didn't see the vice president.
Exactly.
I know it's a detour.
Yes.
But sometimes it's important to clear the air, so we don't just leave it
ordinarily, before you start acting, you will be sworn in. Ordinarily.
But not behind.
Ordinarily.
There will be
yes. Not the type of what you have, not the type of ceremony that you have. Yes.
Citizens will get to see it some way.
Not really the way you see it, But what is important now is, having been sworn in as the president, not issue of vice president or the issue of acting president, having been sworn in as the president, substantive president, which he acted for 1 year or 1 year plus some months, or 1 year plus some weeks, is he qualified to continue? What the Constitution stated is, if you are elected twice, that's what that section 137, 1B said, if you are elected twice. And when you look at what we may call canons of interpretation. Canons of interpretation was established as far back as 1981 in the case of A.G. Bendel against the A.G. Attorney General of Bendel State and the Attorney General of the Federation, where he said that a particular clause or a construction should not be given of Constitution in such a way that it would destroy a particular clause in the Constitution. That means you will not start interpreting, the court will not start interpreting the Constitution in such a way you destroy the clause. There is a clause that has stated that you will only be disqualified if you've been elected twice. So you cannot bring a construction that will destroy that particular construction. And then we have also what you call, you know, beyond that issue, because when you look at the case that came up when he initially intended to contest, you know, when he wanted to contest for 2015 election, somebody took him to court. In the case of Njoko against Jonathan, he was taken to court, and the High Court said he was qualified to contest under that constitution. It went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal affirmed the judgment of the court, and the Court of Appeal reviewed all these. He reviewed all these arguments and said he was qualified to contest.
Oh, Mr. Zella, yes. I know that as a lawyer you want to build up to maybe the climax, but let's talk about this 137 sub 3.
Yes, that's exactly where I'm getting into.
I'd like our viewers first to take a look at the provision in the law, section 137 sub 3, what it says, because this conversation is basically at least partly based on that particular section. So take a look at section 137 sub 3. Says a person who was sworn in as president to complete the term for which another person was elected as president shall not be elected to such office for more than a single term.
Good. That provision came into effect on the 11th of June 2018. And by canon of interpretation, if you look at section 2 of the Interpretation Act, it stated, subsection 2 of it stated that where no other provision is provided as to when an act will come into effect, it is deemed to come into effect on the date in which it was made. What does it mean? It means that an act comes into effect the day in which that law was made. That does not mean that the National Assembly cannot make the law retrospective. It can, but it more specifically states that it is making it a retrospective act. However, there is a proviso. There is no way you can make a criminal matter a retrospective act. Do you understand? But a civil matter can be made a retrospective act. But in this case, since it's a civil matter, there is nowhere we have seen in the Constitution where the National Assembly or the makers of the Constitution, of course, you know, it's not only the National Assembly that amends the Constitution, where the makers of the Constitution decided to make that particular section a retrospective act. And we also have a Supreme Court to that matter. The Supreme Court of a case of Ojo Kolobo and Alamu. And it states that unless the lawmakers make a law a retrospective act, you cannot read into a law retrospective application.
You know, there are two sides to this, but just to, you know, maybe exhaust. We can't exhaust this, definitely, but just maybe push this further. The law specifically says a person who was sworn in. So the operational word is was, and was is really was, anything in the past. And I imagine that the president at that time was sworn in with the same constitution, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999. Yes. So doesn't that cover as well? He was sworn in with the constitution, and essentially, even though you say it's not specifically stated there that it can be retrospective, isn't it clear enough? Was.
Now, if you say that is the point, you cannot make a law and made it retrospective. Using the word was is just like now. If somebody is, for instance now, if such situation comes in, remember that it will be interpreted back to when he was sworn in. But the law states that you can only reckon from when that act was made. And if you had intended it to apply retrospectively, you would say retrospective. You would say this particular section will be retrospective in application. You will state it clearly. So as long as you don't, you will run into a problem.
You're essentially disagreeing with Mr. Femi Falana, who made that clear, assertion that law can be retrospective.
That law can be retrospective?
Yes.
Yeah, law can be retrospective. I have not said that
So
law
is
cannot...
you are also talking about the fact that the National Assembly has not put in... Is it supposed to be a clause?
Yes, it's supposed to be a clause. At least when you look at the case, I mentioned...
What part of the Constitution of Nigeria, or what part of it can be retrospective? What is it that determines whether or not a particular law or part of the Constitution can be retrospective?
When the lawmaker states that it will be retrospective, it has to be clear. And that's what I said, the Interpretation Act. The Interpretation Act is a law made by the National Assembly. And that law says that they can make a retrospective act. Do you understand? But they must state that they are making a retrospective act, not by using the word was. The word was or where or doesn't make an act retrospective.
Can you cite an instance where maybe the National Assembly or anyone has cited a clause that says the law must be retrospective?
No, I have cited the law. You know, the law is as interpreted by the courts. And I said by the Supreme Court's decision in the case of Alamu, Ojokolobo and Alamu, which was decided as far back as 1987. It just borders on this, on whether you can interpret a law to apply retrospectively.
What law was interpreted to give that judgment? Clearly not the 1999 Constitution.
No, it wasn't the 1999 Constitution. But the 1999 Constitution is also based on the laws of the land.
So this is...
We had the 1979 Constitution.
Retrospection of some sort.
Yes, no. The canon interpretation all over the world. It's not just in Nigeria. Remember that we are not operating in a vacuum. We are operating within a universal legal system. And within the universal legal system, your own cannot be different. And that is why world all over, particularly in the United States, where we copied our own, if you want an act to be retrospective, you must state it immediately as you're making the act.
So that's one of the issues raised.
But if it's a criminal matter, you cannot. That is it.
That's one of the points raised, and I'm sure this is also subject to the interpretation of the courts. So this is not, essentially...
Did you say subjective interpretation of the courts?
That's subject to...
Interpretation of the courts. Okay, great.
But is the interpretation of the courts not sometimes subjective? Based on perception.
Once the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement, it is the law of the land.
Okay, another detour yet again. But the point Mr. Falana made was not just based on that section 137, sub 3 and fourth alteration. He also talked about Marwa versus Nyako.
Yes.
And then talked about, the court saying that, the Federal Republic of Nigeria's constitution essentially prescribes a single term of 4 years.
Yes.
And if a second term, another period of 4 years and not a day longer. And he did the calculation, as you heard, saying that if the former president were to join the APC and then, of course, throw his hat in the ring and, of course, be running, that means he would have done more than 8 years. He also cited this other one, Ladoja versus INEC 2008, and the court's pronouncement. So,
yes.
Speak to that angle.
Okay, good. You see, these ones were all specific cases of candidates that have been elected and they were going in which they are seeking interpretation of what their constitutional limit is, and the court made those pronouncements. Now, in the case of Jonathan, a court has also made a pronouncement with respect specifically to this. The court made pronouncement in that case of Njoko against Jonathan, in which this issue was canvassed. And the Court of Appeal said, no. Even if it continues, that what is important is to look at that 137(1)(b). That is what the court said. So there is a specific pronouncement in the case of Jonathan. Ordinarily, I would have expected the plaintiff or the appellant to get to the Supreme Court to see whether the Supreme Court would change that decision of the Court of Appeal. But it was not done.
Versus Jonathan.
Yes, and that's Njoko versus Jonathan.
That's a tricky one, I see, because clearly it will be quite dicey or tricky to step into this without a clear signal, because the court, first of all, that Njoko versus Jonathan was not exhausted, so someone can institute something and then throw it out.
Yes, somebody can.
So do you think it will be, I don't know, a good calculation to step into this murky water, seeing that it is not clear?
No, it may be good. What is important is to develop our jurisprudence.
You said may.
No, what is important is for us to develop our jurisprudence.
Is that a risk worth taking?
Whoever feels that his right is threatened can do that.
No, I'm saying for the former president now.
Yes.
If he were to go through this, is that a risk worth taking, knowing that it can actually swing either ways.
No, but what is important today is what is the law of the land, especially with respect to him. For him to take. Yeah. I am not President Jonathan. I am not here to converse for President Jonathan. I am only here to state. I have never spoken to President Jonathan. Okay. I am only here to state what I think is the law of the land.
Well, another leg of disqualification is in the contentious 8412. Yes. The Electoral Act.
Yes. Okay.
And there are those who are wondering whether or not political appointees should, go or resign or stay as a pronouncement of a federal high court. And there are those who are wondering where is this all going? Some state governors are already making, that move. Some political party made the move, then backpedaled. And what do you make of all of these? Is the 8412 of the Electoral Act, is it still substantive or not?
Great. Now, today, the law of the land is to the extent that the court has set aside this section. That is what it is today, until the Court of Appeal states otherwise. But come to look of it, politicians will always want to put us into confusion.
No, let's stay with the law for a second.
Yes.
You get back to it. We'll come to that. But so there is the pronouncement of the court, right?
Yes,
on that matter.
Yes.
But the further leg to that pronouncement is the order of the court for the Attorney General to delete that section. Is this something within the powers of the Attorney General to do?
I think it's a surplusage on the part of the court. Why I say it's a surplusage, the court has set aside that particular section. So asking the Attorney General to remove and do this, does not really follow.
Is it legal for the Attorney General to do that?
No, what I'm saying is that it is a surplusage in my view, it is a surplusage on the part of the court has powers to delete that section. So asking the Attorney General or directing the Attorney General to continue to gazette and whatever, is a surplusage. Once the court has nullified that section, and if there is no appeal on it, that section stands nullified. And that means it goes out of the acts of the National Assembly. It's automatic. But if, for instance, the National Assembly or any other interested party is willing to go to court and nullify or set aside the decision of the lower court, so be it. But the point is, the decision of the court alone, standing alone, has nullified that session.
Is that to say then that the state government and any other authority who has told the political appointees to resign, is that an infringement of their rights?
The state government or the state governor appointed them or the president appointed them. They are serving at the pleasure of the government. So if the governor feels that it's going to distract them from their work and ask them to resign now, that's okay. But constitutionally, it's not for them to resign. But if the governor, the appointing authority says resign, what else do you need? They will resign because the appointing authority simply feels that they are being distracted.
I know the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Channels Television spoke with him in the UK yesterday about this same matter.
Yes.
And for him, he thought, why go through it in the first place? And I think it just goes back to the point I was making about the former president. Because it's neither here nor there, as it were. You don't know what might happen. So imagine buying forms for how much now? You invest so much into it, you've gone through the process, and then the court says, well, that law actually still stays. So maybe you can tie it together. Would you be advising, those who are in that position to go ahead or just wait this out and resign or drop this office? What harm would you do?
Now, if the court finally decides, if the Court of Appeal, remember it may get to the Supreme Court. Now the question is, the question will go back where they qualified as at the time they entered the race. And I would think that the day the court makes the decision is the day it becomes a law. If the Court of Appeal, maybe next month, sets aside the decision of the High Court, it is that day it will become law.
who could go on and on with
so
this
and remember, it's an act of national, it's not a constitutional matter.
Even though I wanted to take him up on the politicians, and they get help from lawyers.
Look, see, today when we started, he wanted to speak only to the legality,
not the morality.
Going this way is the morality,
and it's Friday.
Well, Chukwuma Ezala, well, the court hereby rises.
Thank you.
Chukwuma Ezala is a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So your own contribution to the program next, and who's first?
Oh, there you go. That's the first tweet we're taking this morning. It's on leadership recruitment, and it says, well, our political elites and leaders must make room for proper selection and elections of political actors with wherewithal to enact policies needed to exhume Nigeria from economic doldrums and the mire of endemic poverty and corruption.
This is a mail from Kenneth. Women in politics. I'm of the opinion, he says, that women's equal participation in political life plays a pivotal role in the general process of the advancement of women. And again, women's equal participation in decision-making is not only a demand for simple justice or democracy, but can also be seen as a necessary condition for women's interests to be taken into account.
And this tweet from Festus Akimboiwa says, I hope many women will be supported and elected into political offices in 2023 so that we have better represented constituents. We need more women in our elected offices if we want to make a meaningful development as a nation. Can I quarrel with that? Certainly not.
Well, this next one is on the academic conversation we had about ASUU, and it talks about research in universities, saying, I wish to state clearly here, guys, research takes a chunk, a minimum of 40% promotion in the promotion guideline. It means you can never get promoted without research. Meanwhile, teaching is less than just about 10%, community service and administrative duties as well. That's from Shion Akoride Son.
Well, on the same issue, ASUU strikes and subsequent issues have become legendary. Does it mean that Nigerian government cannot or does not have regard for the education of our citizens? No wonder half-baked tertiary institutions are dotting the landscape.
Okay, I'm going to take these last two tweets. Olagunjo Oladele says, while we are busy renegotiating an agreement that was mutually reached years ago, we should remember that the resultant consequences are already being felt. All I see is a system that is cultivating what to eat today and not what they'd harvest tomorrow. Very pregnant words there. You also see this from Victor Owo. When will issues bordering on the ordinary Nigerian be a priority? I saw an article in a Nigerian daily of 41 years ago still talking of ASUU strike. When will the story change? Or big questions. And I think that they take all the more importance when you think of the fact that we're in a political year, the year preceding an election. I think that the people certainly have they have a choice to make. They have a vote on their hands, and they certainly can bring the issues that concern them to the fore. Security, education, and to ask those who are aspiring for these offices, especially as they're seeing them, to come out with an agenda for the issues that truly concern them. Gentlemen.
Well, what more can we add? I guess I'll just say I'm Kayode Okikiolu. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Well, you have the opportunity to research your candidates the next 4 days that you have holiday and the weekend. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you for watching. I'm Maokbe Ogun Yusuf. Goodbye.